Bye-bye. Still some tickets available at the Theatre Royal.
You don't?
Ladies and gentlemen, you're very welcome back to our town hall debate, our candidates debate here in the Town Hall Theatre in Dungarvan, and thank you to everybody here for coming along. Our candidates tonight are Ciara Conway from Labour, Justin Collery, the independent candidate, John Deasy from Fine Gael, Tom Higgins, independent, Brendan Keneally, Fianna Fáil, and Jodie Power from the Greens. Our next question is in relation to the Irish language, and Michael Drislan. Michael.
Well, there are no ceist on a háchtach a ceist na Gaelinge, os rud go bhfuil counter Gaeltacht on sons na déis and Ryangus and Shanafobble. And I suppose I would like to ask the candidates their policy with relation to the teaching of the Irish language, the promotion of the language, what needs to be done to make it more accessible at secondary level in particular, but also in primary level. Tásigum go bhfuil dultí ó bhean scoil San Nicholas and seo nach chomágus and ceist céine có. Agus mar dermse anna háchtach agus gomór méile phobal. So that's the question for the audience, and particular, Ian, for Deputy Deasy, because I know his party leader in particular is trying to downgrade the status of the language and make it optional. So I want to know, does he agree with his party leader, and is that the case that Fine Gael are going with?
John, you want to answer that?
Right now the figures are that 4.4% of people speak Irish on a daily basis outside of education. I don't think that's good enough. And yes, I do agree with the policy, at least the sentiment that has been raised by Fine Gael. Absolutely. In my own experience, years ago, I brought up the issue of printing reports, state body reports, agency reports in both languages. And the reason I did so is because here in Dungarvan, a principal of a secondary school brought to my attention that students at a Gael school next door weren't able to complete their leaving cert after second year in secondary school because the funding wasn't there. And I raised the point that I thought that spending money on printing reports that no one ever reads was a very bad waste of money, while funding, for kids who wanted to actually finish their leaving cert in Irish just wasn't there. But what really caught me was people would come up to me and they would say, well, look, we like your, what you're saying. Irish speakers in the Gaeltachts around the country were saying there is merit in your argument. But on radio, they absolutely excoriated me. And I really felt as if they didn't like somebody from Fine Gael bringing up the issue of the Irish language, even though privately they would say, well, there's real merit in what you're saying. I mean, right now, when you look at the figures of people speaking Irish, it isn't good enough. And I think as far as reinventing the way we look at educating people in Irish so that they can speak it once they leave secondary school is an absolute priority. So yes, I do agree with the policy.
Okay, thank you for that, John. Moving to Brendan Kennedy. Brendan, you'd like to get in on that question?
Yeah, we'll stay at the outside. I don't agree with the policy that Fine Gael are putting forward, but I do agree there are problems, I think, in the way Irish is taught. I was in on Ryan and Shanafobble canvassing yesterday, and it came across to me very much so from all the people I met out there that they were very, very angry in what was being proposed. Not only because what it might do to the Irish language down the road, and there's been huge efforts made to promote the Irish language, not only in the Gaeltachts but also through the various Gael Scoilna that have sprouted right around the country and in Waterford as well. There's two Gael Scoilnas in Waterford City. There's one in Dungarvan. There's one in Tramore. So the language is being promoted, and I think it would be terrible for us to lose the culture. But having said that, I think there is a difficulty in the way that we're speaking, that we are learning Irish, because it is terrible for any of us to be coming out of, after doing our leaving cert, after 14 years of learning Irish, and we're not able to speak the language. That tells me there's something fundamentally wrong with the way Irish is being taught. I think a lot of the problem is because of the people who set the curriculum as to the way they believe it should be taught. Now, you can say that we're in government, we should be able to override that and change the way that is being taught. But a lot of people will say they don't want to learn Irish basically because of the way it's been taught. We should just set a standard that people should be able to leave school and speak Irish. But by not making it compulsory, I don't think it's the right way to go with it.
Okay, I'm going to take, I was going to take 2-3 more people on this, but quite quickly because I want to get a second question in this time. Tom Higgins, Independent, first of all, please.
I'd just like to say that my eldest daughter, Emily, was the first, there was 2 or 3 pupils in the first year of the Gael Skull here in Dungarvan, way back over 30 years ago. Sorry, less than 30 years ago, she'll kill me. They started off with 3 pupils, and Murray Shaw Christor, Seamus McGrath, and a group of us got started. I mean, the Irish school, as you can see today, is a very flourishing school.
And what's your thoughts on how Irish should be taught in the future, Tom?
I think it should be all about oral rather than the written word.
Okay.
I know my 3 daughters are fluent in Irish, as is my wife.
Yeah. So there's a large degree of common ground on this particular one on how Irish should be taught.
And it should be compulsory.
Ciara, did you want to come back in on that?
Yeah, just níl mo chugailga comá sa bhí sé ach just
Mission freshen.
bhalam go tír gan teanga is tír gan anam. You know, and that is really, really important to remember. But there's also an economic side to this argument as well. Like in An Rhine, one of the biggest economic drivers out there is the Coláiste and the scolóirí that they have there every summer. It creates local employment for not only teachers but also for the Banantí agus Farantí every summer. And I spent all of my summers in An Rhine and it was the most enjoyable way to learn Irish. And I think we have to look at it, we have to take a step back and look at how teachers are trained in teaching the language and their approach, because as we all know, we're all impacted on by the kinds of teachers that we meet in the classroom and their relationship with the language.
Non-compulsory?
Oh, I think it should remain compulsory. Yeah.
Mission, come on. For me, I was brought up and went to school at Mount Sinai in Waterford, where everything from a very young age was taught through Irish until we left at Leaving Cert. So I know what it's like to be immersed in an Irish language situation there. I think, as Ciara said, it's very much part of our tradition, very much part of who we are, it's in our blood. It's very important that we preserve the language. And we can only preserve the language if we have it in people's minds and in people's hearts. We can't put it into people's minds. And by putting it in people's minds only, by making it compulsory, you're just going to turn a lot of people off.
Okay.
I think, and one thing, if I can just finish with this, Des Bishop did more for the Irish language. And I think the Irish language and the Irish people involved with that should give Des Bishop a medal for it. And that's the way to bring Irish into it.
Jodie Power from the Green. So non-compulsory, you're saying, Jodie, anyway. And
Not
Justin,
compulsory,
finally,
no.
do you want to get in this, or is this nothing that you're particularly interested in this, Grant? Okay, let's... well, do you know, wear your heart in your sleeve, why not? Next question from Jenny Burrs. Jenny, are you wearing this with your Dungarvan West Waterford Chamber hat on or off?
A bit of both,
Bit of
actually.
both, okay.
Yeah, as an individual and also as part of the chamber. The universal social charge has totally expunged any bit of disposable income any household or individual in Ireland has. And so it's obviously affected business adversely in the town and also in the country. Just wondering, if you're in government, do you intend reversing this, or what would your policies on to stimulate disposable income spend or give the availability of disposable income back to households?
Yeah, so small business particularly feeling the effect of the income being ripped out of people's pocket. Brendan Keneally, maybe yourself, as it was, you're the major party in government that introduced this. What's your opinion on it?
There's no doubt about it. There's a lot of anger out there about universal social charge, and I have found that on the doorsteps. It was introduced to amalgamate some of the other levies, etc., that were there at present, but obviously went further than that and taken more money out of people's pockets at the end of the day. Unfortunately, we have a situation in this country where we are spending 19 billion a year more than we're earning, and the money has to come from somewhere. Most people would say tax the rich, but there's a bit of a fallacy there that there's a huge number of rich people out there that we can suddenly get billions and billions of euro from. We can't. I think it's 4% of taxpayers in this country contribute 25% of all income tax, and about 6% contribute about 50% of all income tax in this country. So there's no huge pot of gold out there. The money has to come from somewhere. And while I know it's tough on people at the moment, we are trying to take the medicine now, shall I say, get this over and done with as quickly as possible, get the country back on its feet again. And as soon as we do that, we will be in a position to reduce the USC again.
Okay, I'll tell you what, we're going to take a quick break now. We'll come back, we'll continue the discussion on the universal social charge, because I think it's a big and an important topic, and I'm sure the other 5 candidates will want to get in it as well. But first of all, we'll take a break.